Dr. B back here at the bunker, and this module I've titled Advanced Tools and Setting More Power Tools, and we're going to look specifically at differentiation. And probably have gone through the reading materials for this module already. I hope they're useful for you because what I have focused in on this class for was after 24 years of teaching, I think my PPTs are a good sound base not only to teach new teachers but to encourage older teachers to look at as well. And so a PPT is a personal and practical theory of teaching. And I'll just share with you overall what my PPT is. It's Harry Wong in the first days of school. It's the Marzano strategies. It's parts of Kagan cooperative learning. It's graphic organizers and multiple intelligence theory. It's performance assessments and problem-based learning and experiential learning for that. It's a little bit of Roger Taylor's AHA model, and it's going back to Dunn and Dunn's personalized learning styles and differentiation. And so these form the background of what I believe is good teaching. And it's what I use in the classroom. And so what I want to do in this module is explore a couple parts of this. And hopefully everything I just shared with you is nothing groundbreaking or nothing that you're going, well, wait a minute, what about that? Well, I want to explore two parts of this PPT. And the first is Ken and Rita Dunn's personalized learning styles. The second is Gardner's multiple intelligence theory. It's not going to be exhaustive. It's just going to be a brief introduction to it. And hopefully we can take these two things and get into differentiation a little bit. Okay? So the first is Ken and Rita Dunn's personalized learning styles, or they like to call them learning preferences. And I was introduced to Ken and Rita Dunn way back when, in my undergraduate preparation, clear back in 1993 at Ottawa University. I still remember my instructor there, Dottie McCrossan, one of the nicest human beings I ever had the pleasure of meeting. And she had us get this book, uh, and it was about learning styles and learning preferences. And one of the images that is in the lists I had you read there or look at there is a chart that you need to take students through, and you need to have them experience, because Dunn and Dunn argued that for students to learn their best, we have to address their learning preferences. And so we need to take into account their environment, their emotional status, their sociological preferences, their physiological preferences, and their psychological ones. Environmental, it should be relatively simple. Sound, light, temperature, what type of classroom you have. It also goes along with sociological. Do kids like to work by self, with a pair, with peers, as a team? Do they like being around the teacher? Do they like cooperative learning? We could look at physiological, perceptual. How do they see the area? Do they have ample caloric intake and water? Do they have to move? What time of day do they learn best? And so what Dunn and Dunn did is they basically looked at kids what situations put them in a place where they will have that grit and determination of continuous improvement and set them up for success. And Rick Wormelli has riffed on this quite a bit as well. We'll talk more about Rick in a second. If you are a middle school teacher and have not encountered Rick Wormelli, Wormeli, I highly recommend you do. Rick is a great middle school teacher. But we need to make sure that kids are set up for success with all of these things that Dunn and Dunn encourage. And so, what I would suggest is take a page out of Harry Wong's book. The first 2 weeks of class, don't worry about the content so much. Worry about these factors Dunn and Dunn take into account. Worry about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Worry about how do kids learn best. And I bet you if you go, I applaud you, you're the great teachers out there taking this class. I would bet that if you do this with your kids, it will be the first time they ever encounter it. It's kind of wild that way. And I'll tell you this, it works. In my classroom, I've been blessed. Both classrooms, or both main classrooms that I've ever had in teaching in a K-12 school, they've been rather large. And so I've been able to take part of the classroom, turn off lights on this side so it's a little darker, or dim them at least. This side's nice and bright. And then this half of the classroom, I had my computer speakers up, so I played soft music in the background. This side, no music. And I had at one time, I had a piece of plywood in the corner of my room sitting on 2 desks with a blanket over it. And so if kids wanted to read, they were more than welcome to go under there. The only rules were I need to see your heads, I need to see your hands. And if I think something's going on there, you're done. I had kids that I had bookshelves in the back of my middle school room at Valley Heights, and one kid would go back there, carefully craft the textbooks, spare textbooks I had, into a little bit of a recliner shape, sit there and read. And it was weird because I told my kids, I want you comfortable to read. Now, if you can't handle this, we're going to go back to desks and sit. But I want you to be comfortable to read. I had a kid out at Colby that would have to pace the front of the classroom while reading a book. You ask them their retention level after, any follow-up questions? Nailed it. They were working. Just giving kids that opportunity was huge. Well, same thing with our kids learning in this virtual mode at home. Do they know how they learn best? And I had to think about this when my own daughter's 3rd grade teacher, when we started this virtual learning thing, one of the things she set up was, do you have a place to learn? And I thought that's really good until I read her description of it, and I was kind of like, that's not how my daughter learns best. Do you have a bright, well-lit area with all the writing utensils you need, away from distractions, and where you can focus? That's not where Maddie learns best. She needs a place where there's noise, she needs a place where there's things going on, and she needs a place where she can lay down, and she even likes it a little bit dimmer. That's when she's in her sweet spot. Have we encouraged our kids to find that sweet spot where they're going to be most productive, where they're going to be very effective? It's kind of been fun the past 3.5 weeks. I've been teaching the STEM camp here at K-State and with USD 383. In the Zoom sessions I've had with those kids, it's been rather unique because halfway through you will see a kid bolt up, Go downstairs to another room and start listening there. And you're kind of like, okay, what's this kid doing? They were getting to where they were best and where they would learn the best. A couple other things to keep in mind: tell our kids to hydrate, and if at all possible, get snacks. The amount of glucose required for our kids to actually be creative thinkers, we don't give them enough opportunity to do so. And I've always found it just plain asinine silly. The first time that the standardized test came out, the teachers would send home notes: make sure your child has snacks for the test. How about we make sure they have snacks all year long? Because I would hope they were doing greater thinking in the regular classroom instead of just the test. The other thing about it is hydration. Been very lucky. All the classrooms I've had, there's always been a water fountain right across the hall. And so I just told kids, as long as I'm not in a dramatic moment of a lecture or something, all they had to do was go. They could, and I'd nod. They could go out and get a drink. Some schools I've seen, and this to me is probably the best idea yet, they've built little cabinets that they could put 5-gallon coolers in, fill them up with water. They have student workers go around, refill them up, trade them in and out. They're locked in and protected so people can't manipulate or do bad things to them. We don't hydrate our kids enough, which causes their dendrites and their synaptic functions not to be as crisp and sharp. The insulation deteriorates in the brain. They're thirsty. If we want our kids to think well, if we want our kids to learn well, we need to make sure they're hydrated. And by the way, if they're thirsty, it's too late. They need to have water constantly, and keep going with that. Done and done. Great ideas for putting kids in a position where they can be successful. Now, when we come back, we'll talk a little MI theory, and then we'll look at how all of this can play in to differentiation. See you in a sec.